Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for our Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, as Kigali gears up to mark a painful anniversary, France's president acknowledges that his country could have stopped the 1994 genocide, but lacked the will to do so. Over 800,000 people were slaughtered in Rwanda. Also, the former South African parliamentary speaker has been arrested. Nosiviwe Mapisa Kakula has been charged with corruption and bribe-taking, legal troubles that further damage the graft-tainted reputation of the ruling ANC ahead of May elections. And patience with the ANC is also drying up, along with South African cities' access to clean water. Shortages have hit Johannesburg and Pretoria hard, and many have blamed the crisis on mismanagement by authorities. But first, France and its Western and African allies could have stopped the slaughter of around 800,000 Tutsis and Hutus who helped them in Rwanda. French President Emmanuel Macron believes that a lack of will was what prevented foreign powers from stepping in against the genocide. On Thursday, officials from the presidency shared Macron's take on the failures of the international response to the 1994 slaughter, due to be included in a video message to be shared on Sunday, the 30th anniversary of the killings. Speaking to France 24, survivors of the dark chapter have welcomed Macron's position.
I think this goes beyond what Emmanuel Macron said in Kigali on May 27th, 2021, because he recognized the responsibility of France. He made a very strong statement in Kigali after the report that was conducted by the researchers, Vincent Duclerc. And this goes beyond this statement, and we are waiting for the statement that he's going. I learned that he's not going to Kigali this Sunday, but he will make a statement, and we are waiting for the statement with great hope. And we think that he will make other advancements.
Well, between April and July 1994, tens of thousands of Tutsis were massacred on the hills of Bisesero. For 19 years, several associations and survivors have accused the French army of complicity in the killings because of the inaction of the troops of Operation Turquoise in June 1994. Well, France's profound failure in Bisesero was acknowledged in the 2021 report, but the wounds from the abandonment still run deep. Clément de Roma tells us more.
In 1994, 50,000 Tutsis were massacred by Hutu militias on these hills of Bisesero. Aaron Gakoko is a survivor of the genocide and remembers the arrival of French soldiers from the Turquoise military intervention. They arrived 3 months after the first killings, supposedly to stop the slaughter.
They arrived over there, very close to my home. We brought them to this hill called Kigali and showed them more than 500 corpses of people who had been killed a few hours earlier. Then they did nothing. They just left us here.
On June 27, 1994, on this road that cuts through the village, the soldiers saw the multitude of lifeless bodies. They promised a few survivors to rescue them, then they left. They did not return until 3 days later, on June 30th. In the meantime, hundreds more Tutsis were massacred. Aaron fought to survive with this sickle. He harbors bitter memories of the French.
I cannot testify to a single good action on their part. I can only speak ill of them. Even when they were stationed here, they did not save us. We were starving. They pretended to protect us, but they did not protect us or help us.
NGOs supporting survivors want France's army to be held to account for abandoning civilians to slaughter. They've started proceedings in French courts, accusing the country's army of having been complicit in the genocide. Following an initial dismissal, later reversed on appeal, Paris Tribunal is still handling the case. Thousands of human remains now rest at the village memorial. Vincent was only 7 years old at the time and lost many family members.
When the French arrived here, many people left their hiding spots, and they left us in front of a crowd of militiamen waiting to kill us. That's what shocked everyone here. We had said death, never again, and they abandoned us. That's what frustrates me most.
Here, few survivors have heard about the judicial proceedings and frustrations persist. In 2021, a report by historians denounced the profound failure of France in Bisesero.
Well, on Thursday, Somalia ordered the expulsion of Ethiopia's ambassador, closed 2 Ethiopian consulates and recalled its own ambassador from the neighbouring country. Diplomatic tensions between Mogadishu and Ethiopia have ratcheted up ever since Addis Ababa's agreement in January to lease 20 kilometres of coastline in Somaliland, a breakaway autonomous region that is still technically part of Somalia. Well, in South Africa, a day after having resigned as parliamentary speaker, Anne Nosiviwe Mapisa-Kokula was arrested. The politician turned herself in to police and has already appeared in court to face a dozen corruption charges. She says the case against her is weak, but in the run-up to May 29th elections, the scandal is one more that the ruling ANC party can do without. Camille Edlek has more.
One more blow to South Africa's ruling ANC party. The former Speaker of Parliament was arrested on Thursday before being released on bail. Nosiviwe Mapisa-Kokula faces 12 counts of corruption and 1 count of money laundering.
The applicant handed herself over to the police, that she is willing, and this is an address from Advocate Kerr Phillips, willing to hand in her passport. The state has addressed the court that they are not opposing her release on bail because she's not considered a flight risk. And the state has considered her health as one of the conditions, not opposing bail in this matter.
She's accused of asking for and accepting hundreds of thousands of euros in bribes from a military contractor during her tenure as Minister of Defence. On Thursday, she resigned as Speaker and MP, but claimed her innocence. Prosecutors said they would begin proceedings against her on the 4th of June. She's the latest in a string of senior ANC figures to face accusations of graft, including President Cyril Ramaphosa and his Prime Minister. It comes ahead of national and provincial elections in May, as the ANC lags behind in opinion polls. This latest scandal is unlikely to do the party any favours, as it struggles from the fallout of previous graft probes and an ailing economy.
Now, other concerns are also weighing on the ANC's reputation in South Africa, leading to speculation that it might gain less than 50% of the vote for the first time next month. Thousands of South Africans have been lining up for water in some of the continent's richest cities. Johannesburg has suffered water shortages in the midst of its blazing summer, and it's not for the first time. The country's crumbling infrastructure means that electricity is often not a given, and that the water crisis is adding to national frustration with the ANC. Our team reports.
The town of Hammanskraal is an hour's drive from Pretoria, the South African capital, but its residents have no running drinking water. Trucks bring water once a week, supplying drinking water to residents, hospitals and schools. Dolly has lived here since 2009. She stores as much water as she can for her 5 children, but insists she never has enough.
I use this water when I want to cook, because even that water in the tap, you can't even cook with it. When the pot boils, there's this simmer coming out. It's dirty. You can see it's dirty. It's something like sand. You don't even understand whether it's sand or it's what.
A cholera epidemic killed 15 people, including 2 children, in this town in May 2023. The local water treatment plant was in urgent need of renovation. President Cyril Ramaphosa visited the site in June last year, promising to invest 50 million euros. The local ANC councillor says that work to update the reservoir has already begun.
They promise us that on November, December, that treatment plant will be finished and the people of Hammanskraal will start to drink clean water.
According to a ministerial report, there is a national scarcity of drinking water. Almost half of the country's taps supply water that is not safe to drink. Specialists say the water crisis could have been avoided.
Research has been done for the past 3 decades, showing that, especially from 2010, that would be reaching a turning point to say that, listen, the same as with load shedding in 2008, to say that we need to start investing in our infrastructure and make sure that we have qualified, knowledgeable people with experience in the right positions. Unfortunately, that hasn't been done.
Dolly doesn't know whether she'll vote for the ruling ANC on Election Day on May 29th. Like many residents, she feels that the ANC has failed to maintain the country's infrastructure.
Well, Niger continues to struggle to rein in armed groups who appear to be ramping up attacks, many of which target the country's beleaguered military forces themselves. The violence has also had repercussions beyond Nigerian borders, as it's forcing thousands of people from their homes and into neighbouring countries. Our regional correspondent, Harold Girard, has more.
On Sunday, the Nigerian National Guard, an elite army corps, was targeted 2 times by the same armed group in Kutachi, less than 100 kilometers from the capital city, Niamey. According to military sources, a first group of attackers approached Nigerian forces on foot. The second ambushed them on motorbikes. Kutachi is a strategic location for terrorist groups trying to close in on the main commercial road linking Benin and Nigeria to Niger. Niger's army are not reported to have suffered any losses, but this is the first such an attack at this location, suggesting that terrorist and armed groups are expanding their operations in the region.
West African coastal states neighboring the Central Sahel region are of course impacted by terrorism in the Sahel. This is a game changer for security, and we must say that there is a risk of collusion between refugees and terrorist groups. But we must also acknowledge that most refugees are hiding from armed groups, and we must protect them. They're looking for a safe place.
The mounting insecurity is feeding into a refugee crisis. Civilians, particularly those living in rural areas, are fleeing the Central Sahel region at an unprecedented rate, an exodus driven by the escalating impacts of terrorism, armed violence, and inter-ethnic clashes. Many head towards the Gulf of Guinea.
That is, though, all we have time for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us, though, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.